We have some new rumors for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, claiming that an Indian actor, Gavi Singh Chera, will play, quote, an original form of Sauron. Joining me to discuss this are Jonathan from the1ring.com, as well as European lore, two of probably the most well-versed Lord of the Rings fans out there. Their knowledge is not surpassed by many. So we're glad to have them here to discuss this. And let's get into this. But before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. So this is the rumor that this actor, Gavi Singh Chera, is going to play the original form of Sauron. This is coming from the Fellowship of Fans, and this is their post on X. Gavi Singh Chera will play Sauron in The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 2. He will play the original form version of the character, which is meant to be angelic and ethereal per sources. So we'll start off with you, Jonathan. What do you make of this rumor here, and that this Indian actor will be playing a Sauron who is angelic and ethereal?
I'm just so surprised that this is the character they would pick. I mean, talk about like Dalmatian not wearing it. No, this is totally like, I'm not surprised at all that this is what they're going for. I don't know. Does anything surprise me anymore regarding this here? No. The biggest part, honestly, is not even the way he looks. It's like that they're, and I think you, Sebastian, you pointed this out in your video, is how convoluted this is going to make their story now. Because we're not talking like one shapeshifter, we're talking it twice in the span of a couple years. And we know that Sauron is indeed a shapeshifter, right? In the first age, he becomes a wolf, he becomes a werewolf. And so in this, it's not unheard of that he can change the way that he looks. But again, he's changing the way he looks in order to be the most lovely form, in order to be the one that the elves would most approve of, and be like, oh yeah, this is the guy. And I don't see this happening in this whole thing. It's just, I don't know. They're gonna, it's become, you know what the show is becoming? It's becoming the Rise of Skywalker. It's like they're trying to fit everything in, and they don't know where to go now. They don't have any idea how they're going to move out of this here, but they have to keep towing the party line. And so this is the character that they're going to pick. I don't, to have Halbrand and this guy, and now we're going to have Adar coming in as a new character too. Everything is becoming convoluted and completely, it's going to be untenable. I don't know how they're going to untie the knot that they're tying themselves into.
So what do you make of this? I mean, obviously Tolkien describes Antar, which is Sauron's form that he doesn't try to use to deceive the elves, as fair, and he's describing him as obviously his physical depiction. He does do that. So what do you make of this rumored casting here?
Well, they are making it unnecessarily difficult for themselves. I mean, it could be that the original actor who portrayed the Halbrand character can't play this character anymore, so they're choosing this one basically because the first actor can't. But if they first from the get-go chose to at least a little bit follow the timeline that Tolkien described, which is Sauron took the form of Antar at about the age 1200 of the Second Age, and then he was never welcome in Lindon, but he was welcome in Eregion, where the Celebrimbor was very much active, but it was Galadriel who saw through him, so she didn't trust him, and then she won the other elves, yada yada yada, and then he helped the elves, with their skills, so they can create the three rings of power at around 1500, I think, of the Second Age, and then 100 years later or something, 100 years later, it was years later, he made his one ring, then he put it on. Everybody knew, nobody trusted him anymore. It was over. He was full Dark Lord. It's actually not that difficult to keep one storyline, but they had to do this, which they did at the end of the first season, which is kind of Anatar-like character, because they kind of did it already. Halbrand was kind of this scruffy-looking hot guy, who was in disguise. He made them make the rings, and then he escapes into the newly created Mordor. So I don't know. I'm sorry. It's too difficult even for even or for Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they obviously just kind of ruined themselves by eschewing the books from the entire first season, and now it seems like they're like I think kind of what Jonathan was saying, they're trying to Rise of Skywalker it because they realize they made all these massive mistakes and they're going to try and correct them, and it's already kind of too late because they've already kind of twisted themselves into all of these story knots that they've done.
You know, if they're using this character to fool the Harfoots, that would totally make sense. But I don't think this character would fool anybody because, I mean, are they going to change the elves into these dullards that have no clue about anybody? For instance, like Halbrand just fooled Galadriel, right? And so now it's going to be a couple years later, I guess, and now they're going to get fooled again by another guy who comes in and says, "Look, I'm here to help the whole time," just like Halbrand was here to help. It's either maybe it's the Force Awakens where they're just replaying the same storyline from the first age now too, just like that replays the storyline from the first Star Wars film. So they don't know what they're doing. They don't have anybody with any passion behind this project. They're just trying to like check some boxes. They're trying to like fit the story into the storyline that they have to have in order to meet these goals that are completely outside of Tolkien. If they would have simply said, we're not going to compress the entire storyline, we're not going to try and fit all these characters into the span of a few years, and said we're going to take this story of Numenor and we're going to do the first season of that, and then we're going to take this story of Eregion and do this season in that, and well, completely obviously the dirty little sociopaths, the Harfeet, we're going to not even include them. And if they would have done things like that and would have had the through line of the elves the whole way, the elves that live forever and live forever in a sense. If they would have done that, then they would have had this problem of trying to recast these roles and to fit things into the storyline that they're building, where now they have to create the other rings by this guy, and he now has to fool them again and bring them back into it, and he now has to look completely different than Halbrand and not even resemble anyone else we've ever seen in the show that would be, angelic or the Lord of Gifts. I'm going to be really interested to see how they extricate themselves from the corner they've backed themselves into. It's going to be entertaining in a very like I'm watching a 60 I'm watching a car crash on the highway in the middle of a blizzard type of way. Where you just
like
see
the
cars.
the videos where they're like they hit the ice patch and they go down the hill.
They
and
keep going, and the next car
wrecking.
comes, and hopefully nobody dies. But it's a horrible situation for them.
So we do have a little bit more information here on this rumor. So they also posted this. They said can confirm a previous rumor or report from a person named Dr. Nosy that Antar is a character name listed for the Rings of Power season 2, though no confirmation or evidence yet as to whether the original form that actor Gavi Singh Chera will be playing Antar. So my kind of theory, if they were actually trying to do this, is this guy is going to be playing Sauron in like flashbacks to maybe the first age, maybe where he's kind of like joins forces with Morgoth and things like that. And we see some kind of flashbacks with that. And then obviously Halbrand would still be playing the Sauron in the second age. So that's kind of like the one thing where I thought, and
yeah, but here's the problem is like they can't have Antar be Halbrand. He has to look different. It would be impossible for him to look the same. So if they're saying Antar is a new character in this, then
right.
even if this guy's not playing him, they have to have somebody else play the character of Antar. I don't think it's possible to do it any other way.
Right, and which like obviously as a European lore was saying, it doesn't really make any sense because Halbrand already kind of did play him in the end of the first season, where he's actually involved with making those the three elven rings of power and everything like that. We don't even see them make the rings for the dwarves or the humans or any of the other rings of power that they make. We just see the three elven rings, which is completely contrary to what Tolkien wrote. Obviously, the three elven rings were the ones that were made last before the One Ring, and then you had all the other rings that they made, and he wasn't even involved. In the creation of those three elven rings, he had already kind of left, and the elves built those out of his imagination. He says that in a letter 231, I want to say, the one to Milton Waldman. Tolkien makes that clear too.
The problem is also that they have already failed because they want to portray the angelic, quote unquote, version of Sauron, which is Antar, because he can seemingly appear, to other beings as this like ethereal, extraordinarily unnaturally beautiful character. They couldn't even make elves look like proper elves. Their elves look like strange, weird humans with pointy ears. So there is no chance they can portray this on screen.
Yeah, there's no Kate Blanchett as Galadriel. I think Jackson did a really good job with the elves, elves there, and we completely different than what we see in Rings of Power. So there's this other part here too. So they said in flashback scenes, original form Sauron will have long hair. In present day scenes in Region, he apparently has shorter hair. So
so here's where they say that he's going to be the original form Sauron. I didn't catch that originally. Like they put him in parentheses right there.
Yeah, they're calling it original form right here to play the original form version, whatever that means.
So in theory, at the end of the first age, we're not totally sure, but it kind of seems like he might have had second thoughts about being a bad guy, right? He looks at himself and like that the meme, right? Am I the baddie? Right, that's sort of where he is at the end of the first stage, beginning of the second age, and so he goes back to Valinor, right? And so maybe like are they saying that this is the form that he takes, maybe at that point, and then he descends back into his Sauron madness and takes on Mordor. Of course, that's like Sebastian was saying, that's 1,200 years that we're talking about. That he has a form that's different than Antar, but he's in that form in Mordor, like he's establishing that realm. And so if this is a flashback to that, maybe in the battle of at first age battle or at the beginning of the second age or whatever, again they're tying themselves into knots, and then we're going to have 3 forms of Sauron in addition to his fully mailed form with the Peter Jackson design. It's getting a little crazy.
Yeah, I actually think that probably is the best solution that they could do, where he is kind of maybe somewhat repentant, not truly repentant, I guess, but he has lost, right? Morgoth loses.
Yeah.
He does go back, and then his sin there is disobedience, and he refuses to obey, and then he wants to kind of remake Middle Earth into his image, and then he tries to seduce the elves through the Antar, Antar, giver of gifts, by like, hey, I want to help rebuild Middle Earth too. And then obviously Galadriel and Gil-galad and Elrond kind of see through that and kind of rebuff him. But a lot of the elves, like as Sebastian was saying, Celebrimbor, they do kind of are seduced by what he's offering them. So there was another piece of this rumor as well. I took them out of order a little bit here. This was like this was the second tweet, but I thought it was more kind of a standalone. It wasn't really related to kind of their pieces on Sauron. But this one here was about the Rings of Power, and we did, like as we said, they did make the 3 Rings of Power in the first season, but they didn't make the ones for the humans or the dwarves. But this one here, they're saying, as was expected, most of the Rings of Power will be forged in season 2 in Celebrimbor's tower, and given by Sauron to different races, unconfirmed as to which form will be distributing the rings. So, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you, European lore. Well, what do you make of this here? Because this just seems absolutely ridiculous, given what we saw at the end of the first season and how much it kind of was not Tolkien.
It really goes back to one thing. It's made by incompetent people. Now, those first 2 showrunners that started this show, I think I've heard somewhere that they are being replaced. The Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne guys, they had never done anything before that would be released on screen, and so I don't think they had enough skill to make this show. I will not doubt their knowledge of the lore of Tolkien, of the books. I don't know if they have read all the books or not, but they have already started in a very confusing way. It really looks as if they didn't know what they are doing. They apparently, according to what Fellowship of Fans have tweeted, apart from the appendices, they can adapt certain things from other books, and that then depends on an specific arrangement with the holders of the rights. So I think that they are just trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Just whatever we can take, whatever we can make, we'll put it in there. Just make a lot of like some sort of a mishmash, goulash, eintopf of things. It's very confusing.
Yeah, I definitely think it is confusing because obviously they're doing the rings of power out of order, and then obviously we don't even know which form it's going to be. So, which again kind of leads to this idea that uh, Halbrand is going to transform into this other actor and become Antar, and and then like go back and like seduce the elves in this other version after he kind of already did it. And it's like, well, what is even going on here? This is just. It also makes Sauron out to be a complete and utter fool. I feel like too, and make the elves even dumber. Like if they're actually going to fall for it, and how stupid are they? Just
Yeah. Here's the thing. Like when we reread the Silmarillion early this year on the podcast, like you go through and you realize, oh, Galadriel was the one who didn't trust him, right? She's the one that saw Antar and was like, who is this guy? And he lives 300 years, so he's clearly not human. He's not a dwarf, right? So he's got to be an elf. But what kind of elf is he? Is he elf that, he's one of the dark elves, that the Morquendi that came over and that never came to Valinor and that stayed over here? Like, what is he? And so there was this question, and they could have really built that up well in the show in that way. But now that we know everything, it's just sort of it's like the car is going to crash and you're slowly watching, like you said, John, like drifting down that slow slope into like the disaster behind it. They had this opportunity and they're fumbling it every time they pick the ball back up, and it's going to be a joy to watch them really give an opportunity to somebody else to do it well in the future, because they're not doing it here.
And one of the things that I think does tie into this rumor here is that there was a previous rumor from Fellowship of Fans back in November where they were saying that Sauron will switch forms and fight Adar using his Halbrand form and original form in one of the early episodes. So it says this is the same scene, but actors filmed on separate days. So there's going to be like 2 fights between the 2 versions of Sauron against this orc leader Adar as well. So I guess one will be like a flashback and one will be like in the present day, because Halbrand's coming in, he's gonna like lay waste to him in Mordor, and then the other one is like a flashback where I guess Adar beat him, because that's what the show's show implies, that he beat him, sent him away or whatever.
So the Charlie Vickers character is still in that show, the actor.
Yeah, yes, that is what they are saying here, that he is still playing Sauron. The only character that I think we know has been recast is Adar. The original actor who played him will not be returning to the show for season 2, and he has been recast.
I hear Odo is available also for this character in order to shapeshift every other episode.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine reference there. But I mean, so kind of what are your takeaways? I mean, I think after watching this, most people have already kind of tuned out. We have this report here from the Hollywood Reporter: inside Amazon Studios, big swings hampered by confusion and frustration. If we go to the actual article here, it says that only 37% of people here in the United States completed the show, which means 63% of people tuned out, obviously dissatisfied with that. I think that kind of goes back to what Jonathan was saying about this being the rise of Skywalker. And then obviously, if we look at who J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay actually worked for, they are bad robot people. So they worked for J.J. Abrams. That's who they worked for. So it almost is like you can't even make it up. They're just following the same pattern that their big boss guy did. And that just looks like what it's going to happen to me. I mean, this is going to be an absolute mess. The people that they have in charge of this are completely incompetent. I think what Jonathan has talked about is something I've talked about too, is that this, if you're going to do a Second Age adaptation, I think it was really easy to do. You have, if you're going to do 5 seasons, you break it up into those big events in those 5 seasons and do a show based on those 5 events. And obviously the last season is the big war epic, the battle, the last alliance of men and elves, and they're attacking Mordor and Mount Doom and everything like that, and it works. And like, you don't really have to change a lot. I mean, Tolkien's stuff is so well written. It's the blueprint is already there. I don't even feel like you need to really change anything. You just have to bring it to the screen. And I think that is probably the biggest mark against Prime Video and Amazon Studios, is the fact that they are so stupid and so proud and arrogant that they couldn't just humble themselves and do what Tolkien wrote.
Maybe, okay, I'm gonna throw a conspiracy theory out here. Maybe they were like, okay, we're only gonna sell them the rights to the appendices, which is what they have. They don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, right? They can't, like, for instance,
that's what they said. Yes.
Yeah, Beren and Luthien, for instance, is always off limits. Nobody can ever do anything with the story of Beren and Luthien. And so maybe there's somebody at the Tolkien estate that's like, let's just sell them the rights to the appendices. And then in like 10 years, we can resell the rights to the Silmarillion and do it piecemeal, and we'll make $100 million per property here. And everybody would be like, oh man, they're doing it better now and they're doing it right. And so now we've got all, I don't know. Maybe that's it. That's the only thing I can think of, because it is
the
a
long
disaster.
play by the Tolkien estate.
It's the long play. I don't know. How else do you define, like, they don't, I don't understand either that, or it's always, it's the grandchildren of the original author that always kind of mess up what the author had, right? So the children still have a respect for Christopher Tolkien, and now you get Simon Tolkien, the guy who said that there was they were too close to the books in the Lord of the Rings, who's running the estate in the films, right? That's what he said. He said the films are too close to the books. They should have been even more different, and he's the one running the estate right now. So maybe there's something there too, or maybe they're just smarter than the rest of us, and they're looking down the road and saying like, we can make 250 million. That's chump change. We can sell the rights for 100 million for each story. I don't know.
All right, European lore, what are your final thoughts on what to expect for season 2? Are you gonna even watch it? Are you gonna watch the show just to lampoon it?
My thoughts are these. I'm going to have a lot of fun making fun of it and getting a lot of views for my channel, and then forgetting about it actually like completely, because I can hardly remember what happened in season 1. Now,
are you saying you didn't rewatch it? You didn't rewatch the whole
I have willingly blocked it all from my mind. From time to time, when I make a video, I will remember, and then I instantly forget again, because all I really need to keep in my mind are, things from the book. So I'm looking forward to the revenue from the YouTube videos. That's it.
As am I. Well,
right.
thank you, Jonathan. Last words from you.
This is dying because it's not so bad that everyone hates it, and it's not good so nobody loves it. Everyone's like, meh. And so everybody I know who's watched it, really, who isn't a fan of Tolkien, they're just they just die in the middle of it, right? They're like, I don't care anymore, nothing matters. And season 2 is going to be a disaster. And we've seen what happened with Doctor Who, where nobody cares anymore either right now. And I think we're going to see the same thing here, is that because it's not good on any level. It's not good on the story level. It's not good on the design level. It's not good on the construction level. Like it's not good on the acting level. It's not great anywhere. And so because of that, it's just going to die. And this is another example of why, because they don't know what they're doing, and they keep recasting these people, and they keep throwing more characters at us that nobody cares about. If we cared about Halbrand, maybe this would matter, but nobody cares.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys so much for joining us. You can find European Lore on YouTube, the European Lore, and then Jonathan Watson is on the One Ring. Is it still OneRing.com, or is it obviously work.com and then obviously
theonering.com, and the podcast is exploringtolkien.com, or just look up Exploring Tolkien on any podcast app, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and Apple, of course. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I look forward to enjoying your videos about the Rings of Power as much as will enjoy making them as well. So have a great one.
Thanks, John.